Hello and welcome. As people start to join our webinar here, we always like to, I'm not even introducing anybody yet, I'm just saying hello and we'll chat amongst ourselves about the restaurants you're going to go back to, Frank, as soon as they open up again. What's the one you've been waiting for post-coronavirus?
You know, I would love to actually get into a McDonald's diner again. I'm so sick of drive-thrus. Just to eat the quarter pounder at a table would be wonderful in my world.
That's awesome.
I don't know.
Would you play with the swings and the kiddie stuff?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Missed that.
Yeah, I miss those days.
Sam, do you have a restaurant on your list?
I won't name a restaurant, but I'll name a cuisine. I can't wait to have good sushi. Just freshly made sushi with their hands all over it. That's
the stuff in the grocery isn't cutting it for you.
Can you please keep that our little secret? I don't want to
Just
admit that.
I know. It's all right. Well, let's do this thing. Hello and welcome, everybody. My name is Melissa Garland. I am the VP of Client Development for AtlasRTX. Welcome to our webinar series. This is the second in a version that we're calling Executive Chats, which is an opportunity for us to hear the stories and insights of business leaders from our community and beyond. And speaking of community, we are here in our, as I was told to say, North American headquarters, right here for AtlasRTX. If you peek out the back window, you'll see what we think of as probably the best view you can see in a lot of office windows, right? So we're very, very pleased about that. But also Bassam Salem, the CEO of AtlasRTX, is sitting here with me. Hi, Bassam. Is going to lead the conversation with our guest today. And for those of you who are joining us, I will take your questions through our Q&A chat webinar window, and we'll be able to share those with our guests as we go. And I would like to welcome our guest, Frank Maylett. Welcome.
Thank you.
Frank is the Chief Revenue Officer for Instructure, a leading technology provider in the education space. Frank has over 20 years of experience leading software service organizations, including running Rise, Point, and Workfront. He was named CEO of the Year by Utah Business Magazine in 2017, among other previous awards. So I, for one, am really looking forward to hearing your story, Frank. Welcome. I'll turn things over to you, Bassam.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Frank, come on, 20 years? 20 years.
I lied. I exaggerated. It's only 12 years. I'm so young.
I think we've known each other for 20 years.
It feels like it. That probably that bio is outdated.
Yes.
I don't know.
We need to update it.
Let's see. I got into tech in '92, so
Yeah, let's not do the math.
yeah, let's not do the math. It's slightly over 20.
The good news is you have hair, so
A little.
You don't show the years. I like to say that my gray is invisible. You can't see it. Frank, let's start with your story.
Okay.
I want to the story of how you got here. And let's go to the beginning. I love the perspective that provides. Give us some context on your story.
Yeah, you know, my story goes back a ways, right? Born and raised in Salt Lake, and had the opportunity to marry my college sweetheart, start a family. And I was working in retail in an organization here in Utah that no longer exists. They've since gone away. But we opened up the first set of bicycle stores called Gorilla Bicycle Company.
Remember Gorilla Bikes?
Yeah, and we grew it to the 6th largest chain of bike stores in 2 years. It was quite an explosion. But I realized I had no family time. And a buddy of mine was working in technology, working for WordPerfect at the time. A gentleman by the name of John Williamson. We're still very close to this day. And John kept calling me saying, come work for us. And I kept saying, listen, you don't pay enough, right? There's not enough money in tech. I'm not going to bother.
This WordPerfect thing will go away.
That's it. Yeah, it's all a fad. Technology is a fad. And one day I came home. My wife said, listen, we never see you. The kids don't even know who you are. And we need to get some rational time instilled back in our lives. And so at that point, I called John up and I said, yeah, I'll literally take a 50% pay cut and move to New York and get into technology. So I was a rep, very proud of, you know, carrying the bag, and we moved my 2 children, my wife and I, and spent the next few years in New York, kind of building a career. And then WordPerfect was acquired by our friends at Novell at the time. And Novell called me up one day and said, hey, good news, you get to keep your job. Bad news, you got to move to and they moved us to Cincinnati, Ohio, which we actually loved. We lived in Kentucky. If you know Cincinnati, it's right on the Ohio River, and we lived over the border in Kentucky. And so we started speaking with a southern drawl and moving very slowly, loving horse racing, all the things we had to kind of absorb being part of Kentucky. But fast forward the career, I did well, had lots of opportunities, and I found my path was in sales management. I was good at selling, but my passion was helping others be successful. So I joined IBM, worked up to be a business unit executive for IBM, was running a $2 billion line of business for IBM, and got pulled away from that. And then I found my real passion, which was companies that needed to be fixed. So the executive I reported to at IBM pulled me away to join him. It was a Draper Fisher Jurvetson company out of the Bay Area. So we moved to Silicon Valley, and I was running worldwide sales for Michael Mollick, still a great mentor and a guide in my life. And I realized that my passions of leading sales organizations and coming in and changing things up, fixing things, was really what made a lot of sense to me. So fast forward, my career is really built on what I call a 4-year stint. When I come on board, whether it was companies like InContact, where we worked together, I told Paul 4 years. When I went to Workfront, I told the board 4 years. When I went to RisePoint, I told them 4 years. And recently, when I was recruited over to Instructure, I told them, guess it, 4 years.
3 years and 6 months.
Yeah, 3 years and a couple months to go. So I'm just new in that journey. But I love coming in and working with great people. But more importantly, I love coming in and helping develop great people. And I know, we worked closely early in your career and watched you develop and move up to where you're at today, which is ruler of the entire AtlasRTX universe out of the North American headquarters.
Pharaoh is more.
Pharaoh's fine. But it's been a fun journey. I love tech, right? And I love working with good people and just helping them.
I like your story about your comment about transformation, taking companies that are trying to pivot or transform and scaling them. And I think InContact was really apt as an example. And I'd love to talk a little bit about that because we shared that experience for quite a few years. Just tell us a little bit about the InContact story and candidly what was an amazing transformation from one type of company to another that you were pivotal in making happen.
Yeah, I came on when InContact was called United Carrier Networks, and I was the EVP of Sales and Marketing. And first thing I realized is we had to change the name because United Carrier Networks was totally forgettable. Nobody could ever remember it. And internally, we called it UCN, but everybody would Google UNC and end up at the University of North Carolina website, some Tar Heels basketball site or something. And at the time, the company was just really getting the software line of business going, the SaaS contact center software. And Paul Jarman, the CEO there, great guy, very smart. We rebranded the company to InContact. We went through some really hard times. I was remembering some of the InContact days. I think even before you started, I think it's on maybe 6 months, and we had to lay off a whole bunch of people. We were running out of cash. And we right-sized, we got hungry, we were humble, we went hunting, to use your 3 H's, and went after it really hard. And you came on when we were just at the point of coming out of that early transformation where we figured out who we were, right? We were a SaaS software company, and we were providing really cool technology around the contact centers. And, we ended up going public, as you know, and ringing the bell on NASDAQ. Some cherished memories of the fraud of NASDAQ, meaning you get there and it's just a blue screen studio, and it looks so great.
It kind of looks like this.
It kind of looks like this.
Great views.
Yeah. Got a green screen behind you, you yell and you cheer, and then you say goodbye and you walk out onto Times Square. So, we had a good run there. It was fun being there. It was fun working with great people. I think back to some of my early learnings within InContact, and the things that you taught. We spent a lot of time together. Yeah, Bassam and I had what the industry lovingly calls PIGs, private interest groups. So we would sit through the executive meeting, and then Bassam and I would slip off into my office or his office, and then we'd really do the right thing. We'd, like,
Something culturally completely unacceptable.
Yeah, we were young. We were young. It was early days, but it was great. And watching, I left in contact and watching them go through the acquisition was nice, and celebrating with them from afar. And I remember the first time I went into their new building, and I honestly got teary.
Yeah.
And I felt that I had a hand in building that company. It wasn't just me. It was obviously more Paul Jarman and the executive team around us. But man, I just remember feeling great pride that we built a really good brand in the marketplace.
You built a really special sales team that really scaled there, Frank. And I know you've thought long and hard about the sort of characteristics that you look for. Tell us a little bit about how you built that team. It really was a special sales team there.
Yeah, I think I made the joke earlier about your little mantra about being humble.
Happy, humble, hungry.
Happy, humble, hungry. There we go. And I think a lot of that really falls into what I look for in people. I want people that want to learn. I want people that are very motivated. Years ago I coined, and it seems very trite to me now because I've used it for so many years, but I called it IQ. If you remember that.
That's right.
And the 3 I's were intensity. I love type A personalities. The camera's not probably picking it up, but I'm always tapping my legs or moving my hands. And I'm a very type A kind of person, but I love that intensity. The second I was intelligence. I'm not at your IQ level. I'm probably like 60%, but I deem myself relatively intelligent and pretty quick-witted as far as getting to the problem. So intensity, intelligence, and the last one is integrity. I wanted the right people. I remember one time we had to let go of one of our top salespeople just because of some integrity issues, and that hurt. It hurt that they didn't quite grasp that. But that's what I look for. And I found young talent, and to this day, I follow the careers of a lot of the young talent that we built at that time. I know that we've got some mutual friends that have become CEOs and done amazing things through that. I think of guys like John Notwell, who's a GM at Instructure, running an entire business division. I look at Rusty Jensen at In Contact, still doing incredibly well, and just a lot of people. And it's very rewarding, as you watch these people grow and develop.
We talk about our leaders made or born. Do you think salespeople are made, or are they born that way? Great salespeople. Do you meet someone and go, that's a salesperson, or can you grow someone to be a great salesperson? I
think you can actually grow people to be good salespeople if they're willing to learn and adjust their behavior. The days of salespeople in the negative sense, I think, are generally gone. Car salespeople, even these days, you go buy a car. I know you and I share a passion for buying cars. They're no longer the usual approach of, what will it take for you to drive this home today, right? That doesn't happen anymore. They're a lot more mellow, they're more consultative. And I think technology has forced that, right? That as consumers, we do 70, 80% of the research before we ever buy a product. And I think it's the same as corporate buyers. So the personalities I look for, again, mirror both of our different mantras. You're the H's, I'm the I's, but are they willing to learn and willing to adopt the right process and methodologies and sales motions and be humble enough to understand they don't have all the answers all the time.
Now, Bassam, I'm going to jump in if it's all right, because the question has just arisen, Frank, that you might find interesting. Todd Hess is asking.
Oh, Todd Hess, another great talent.
There we go.
Hey, Todd.
Hey, Todd.
The title, which he says is a compliment, of Velvet Hammer. Stayed with you since you're in contact with.
Yeah, I've heard that a few times. Listen, as a leader, at times we are the cheerleaders, and at times we have to be the enforcers. And there's a way to do it the right way and a way to do it the wrong way. And I'll tell you, early in my career, I did it the wrong way many times. And I think later in life now, and much more experienced, I'm much more of a velvet hammer. I think when Todd and I worked together, I can think of one instance where the people on the floor below us were actually complaining about my yelling. So that was when I was less than velvet, but Thanks for bringing back those bad memories, Todd. Really appreciate it, buddy.
I will vouch for the fact you've mellowed out. You've mellowed out over the years.
I've grown.
You've grown. You've matured.
I've matured. Yeah.
Which actually brings me to a question that I wanted to ask you for some time, because I think you had time to contemplate about this. After building sales teams for years,
Yeah.
dare I say decades, years, you became CEO.
Yeah.
How was that different? Did you feel it was different?
Yeah. I was recruited by True Search. I think you were part of it. I actually came after you. And you're one of the reasons why I think I probably ended up with that job is that they were.
I actually forgot that.
Yeah, they were approaching a lot of the CEOs in the Valley, and they
We all knew each other. So
yeah, they heard my name a few times and said, "Hey, this Maylett guy is ready to be a CEO," and they approached me, and I said, "I have no interest to be a CEO. I'm not dying to be a CEO. I dig my day job and running sales teams and marketing teams," and we went down that path. I think I spoke with you quite a bit about it, about the transition. And becoming a CEO was really a good experience for me. I realized how lonely the role is, and nobody appreciates that until you sit in the chair. All we do as employees is badmouth our CEO behind their backs, right?
all the time.
All the time. I'm sure everyone on your team here does exactly that.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, it's our secret. But as a CEO, it truly is lonely. You can't complain down to your executive team or your employees, because that's not good leadership, and you can't complain up to your board because that's weakness. And so, I know many times I reached out to you and other mentors in my network and said, "Hey, got a challenge, need some coaching. Hey, tell me a good joke, get me off the ledge." But I'll tell you that the key lesson I took away from being a CEO, and I think it was a very successful 4 years I had at the company. Not as successful as maybe some of the investors wished, but we're still doing very well as a company. But the thing I learned more than anything, it's about people. It's all about people. Surround yourself with great talent, encourage them, empower them, train them, trust them, and you'll be successful.
Absolutely. Transitioning to a sales role in a much larger company now, Instructure, please tell us about that transition. And let's not get to COVID quite yet, because I think we're all tired of talking about COVID, although I'm sure we'll bring it up for a minute or two. But please talk to us about that transition and how that's been.
It's been really good. The transition was not necessarily planned. I had informed the board early in 19 that I'd be leaving towards the end of the year. I'd finished my 4 years. The investors decided they weren't going to go on a heavy M&A spree, which we'd hoped for. And I let them know that I'd be transitioning out. And in the spring, I got a phone call from the CEO at Instructure at the time, Dan Goldsmith, really good guy. And Dan said, "Hey, let's have lunch and talk about how lonely it is being a CEO." And we did. We went to Market Street, we sat down and complained, just lamented the pains of being a CEO. And we shook hands and high-fived.
Right, you shook hands.
But it was the old days where you shook hands.
Great.
It's where two hands connect. Well, look it up on YouTube. I'm sure there's videos of what a handshake used to be.
I believe there were some awkward long ones.
Yes.
Videos of that.
Yeah, I'm sure. So a couple weeks later, I remember I was at the McCormick Center at a big trade show, and Dan called me up and said, "Hey, would you ever consider coming over and running my sales team?" And I said, "Listen, yeah, I would. I'm not stuck on a CEO title. What I'm looking for is something really broken? Is that amount of breakage something that I could address and help? And would I be working with the right people? Yeah, the right CEO, the right executive team." And so we spent the next little while kind of learning and feeling each other out. I really admire Dan. He has since left Instructure. I met much of the EC at the company, very, very good. Marta DeBellis, who was our CMO, lovely person. A lot of great people on the EC. And I recognized that they had challenges, a lot of basic fundamental challenges on the sales side that I could help fix. Now, I'm not perfect in every way, but let me tell you, I'm learning a lot, and we're making a lot of impact. So it's been a fun journey. Great people at Instructure, and a great mission, right? We're helping, especially in this pandemic, that we'll I'm sure get to,
exactly.
Is when you send all your students home, and you say you've got to learn from home, how do they do that? And it just so happens that we're really the only industrial strength platform to do that. We have tens of millions of users on our platform, and we handle not only in higher ed, almost the majority of the major universities, all the Ivy League schools, but in K-12, where our kids sit and really have to learn, we're the platform schools are using. So it's been a very, very exciting journey.
Please talk to us a little bit about the unexpected crisis that's happened and how it impacted the business. I mean, like you said, suddenly everybody knows Canvas. Even those of us who are a little less involved, we've now figured out Canvas. Please talk to us about that.
We entered 2020. We had our FKO. Things were great. We had a phenomenal, Q1 for the first, let's call it 10 weeks of the quarter, well ahead of target. I mean, all the changes we'd made in the company were starting to take hold, and we were getting a lot of really good traction. Then this COVID thing popped up, and we didn't know what to think. It was really weird. I remember my wife and I went on a vacation mid-March, and we were down in Mexico, and we were getting texts from our kids about how weird it was, and people were hoarding toilet paper in Utah. And we were in Mexico going, this is perfectly normal, right? Nobody was rushing to the grocery store. I said, we'll stay here till it blows over. While I was there, they closed our office down and said, everybody work from home, and we knew it was serious. So we cut the vacation short, came back. And in the beginning, it was interesting. We had some educational institutions start slowing down and saying, listen, not now, we've got a problem. And we finished Q1 about 20% ahead of our plan. It was a great Q1. And then Q2 hit. And the slight tailwind turned into kind of a hurricane force wind. And we've just been busier than you can imagine, really getting these systems set up and rolled out around the world. So it's been a very good thing for business. And that's hard to say when it's been a very bad thing for the world, the economy. But we've benefited on the business side. But it's not all, roses and champagne, and there's challenges. When you're a SaaS product, you don't anticipate that every one of your licenses will log on simultaneously. You expect when you sell an organization a certain usage model that maybe 50 or 60% will show up at any given time. And what we found is that everybody showed up at the same time, which was a good thing for us because it proved to the market that we were really enterprise grade. We're the only ones that have been just rock solid in the market, being able to almost double our usage without any kind of outages or downtime. It's been really just kudos to the engineers at Instructure. But it does create a different challenge, and that's a cost structure. We're hosted on AWS, the Amazon Web Services. And when your usage doubles, your cost doubles and your expenses double. And it creates a lot of other financial challenges. But we're working and managing those appropriately. And as a company, I couldn't be more proud of what we're doing. We're helping kids learn. We're helping teachers teach. And we're doing it the right way in the market, which is really important to me.
Frank, all of this disruption's obviously disrupted your clients. Do you see usage patterns or disruptive ideas that have happened in your product usage or your product planning or the way you're positioning it? So you mentioned already increased usage, which is great, by the way, obviously. More people using it, that means it's adding value. Is the product the same, essentially? Is the product the solution today, or does this crisis disrupt the product itself as well? Redefine what it needs to be.
I think what this crisis does is it calls out the weaknesses in your product and areas for improvement. When I say weaknesses, again, I'm not talking about stability, I'm talking about just little things that would make it better when it's being used in a very exclusive format. Previously we're always used with teachers in classrooms and some students when they went home, but now it's all about home. And so our product people, Mitch Benson runs our product team, one of the brightest. He'd give you a run for your money for like super genius. I mean, the guy's really, really good.
Looking for a job? What's his name?
Mitch Benson, but don't speak to him ever. But I think Mitch is identifying areas that we can make the UX better, we can make the experience better for the customers, and we're really focusing and investing on doing just that. We want to get away from any kind of distractions. We're about education. That's what we're about. And all of our investment, all of our focus is about helping teachers teach, helping students learn. And that's a fun mission, especially being later on in my career, right? It's not about money. I'm not looking to make $1 trillion, although if the board does offer that to me, I will take it. But it's about adding value to the world. I remember years ago sitting in Kansas City at the airport and trying to justify in my mind as a sales rep, I was a sales manager at the time, how I deserved to earn the money I was earning when teachers were so underpaid and firefighters were so underpaid. And they were adding so much to society, and all I was doing was schlocking software. And so it's fun to see my career kind of come back a little bit towards the giving back and the value side of the business.
Thanks, Frank. I know there are folks who have some questions.
Yeah, there are
how
a
much
couple.
time we'll have, but
Yeah, we have a couple more questions, Frank, that get a little bit more into the detail of being a salesperson. So Scott McKell is asking, as a newer sales rep who is growing in the sales world, what daily habits do you have that you recommend?
Yeah, number one is planning. Make sure you sit down and you really plan what you're going to be accomplishing that day by goal setting on unusual things. And I'll tell you that one of my big platforms that I always talk about is self-education. And too often, I think as salespeople, we think of ourselves as good enough. We've got a number, we're hitting the number, we're good enough. And I liken it to being a doctor or a lawyer or any kind of really, licensed professional in the marketplace, that it's about continual learning. And so I challenge, I've got kids in top software sales and technology, and I challenge them all the time. What are you reading? What are you studying? What are you learning? And there was a period that I was averaging a couple books a week, and I would alternate between a business book and a fiction book, and just kind of keep my mind fresh. And so, Scott, I'd highly recommend is you identify, a half a dozen really good books about business, not necessarily selling. It could be around sales psychology, it could be around marketing, it could be Malcolm Gladwell stuff or John C. Maxwell stuff or Patrick Lencioni stuff. But take the time to teach yourself. Because in today's corporate environment, the money's just not there for the old corporate campus educational experiences, right? You all heard about IBM. When I moved into the executive ranks at IBM, they sent us off to New Jersey for like 12 weeks or some silly thing, right? That just doesn't happen anymore. We are the captains of our own ship, and we need to learn. So study and plan, learn and plan, be hungry.
Interesting. And then Daryl Williams says that the camera isn't adding 15 pounds at all, which is a nice thing to say.
I think he was 19.
Well, Daryl, let me just say #11 to you, my friend. You'll know what that means, I believe.
Okay.
That's intercode.
Okay. Inside
Daryl's a
baseball.
CTO at Rise Point.
That's awesome.
He's a brilliant guy. Great
I
guy.
love it. And he says, from a sales perspective, how are you planning for the new normal?
Yeah, what is the new normal? That's the challenge. We've got a board meeting next week. And as I'm preparing my board materials, there's a lot of asterisks, right? It's like, we're blowing this out, asterisk, this may not continue. We're challenged here, asterisk, this may not continue. We don't know. I don't know what the new normal is going to be. We're seeing it start. We're code yellow, I believe, in Summit County now or something where, they're lightening up a lot of the restrictions, but we don't know if there's going to be a second bounce of the pandemic. We don't know what's going to happen. We just don't know. So what I'm doing is I'm planning to run the business like I've always run the business. Metrics, measurements, and accountability, right? Keep the team motivated, keep them educated, keep them really focused on the mission at hand, and the nuances will figure themselves out in time. Being a sales leader, one of the beautiful things about working from home is most salespeople work from home. They were used to this motion. Much harder for my marketing team, much harder for developers and different people. But on the selling side, that's kind of normal. So I'm looking for this all behind us. I'm looking for a vaccination or immunization is going to come out that this is gone. and it's in the rearview mirror. And in 2021, we're back to airplanes and hotels and face-to-faces and shaking hands and not having to wear the masks.
Right.
We took them off for this, right?
Correct.
But,
6 feet.
we're 6 feet, we're socially distanced.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm looking for normal.
Yeah, there are quite a few more questions. We are scheduled for 30 minutes, which we've hit, but if it's all right with you, Frank, we'll just keep going. We'll keep the tape rolling, answer a few more questions, and if those of you who are joining us on the webinar wish to stay with us, great. Otherwise, we'll have a recording when it's all said and done, which we'll send around. So Herbert Shades says
a lot of great people from the past.
So blast from the past.
Yeah.
Says some very nice things about the venue that we're in, as well as the series that we're doing. He says, Frank, as a CEO, you obviously supported from the leading position. I think he means you've always been a supporting CEO, right? Does stepping down, if you will, into a supporting contributing role change? Oh, I see. Yeah. Does stepping down into a supporting contributing role change your appreciation for either role, right? CEO, which is better, or supporting role to CEO?
Yeah, I think it actually makes me appreciate both roles more. And I'll tell you that and I think my current, he's an interim CEO, Charles Goodman, I think he would agree that I try to be as supportive to him as possible, because I've been there and I know how awful it can be. And so, you know, I try to make sure that he always knows that I'm there in his corner supporting him. We don't always agree on everything. He's been very constructive with his comments, and he's listened to me when he's needed to listen to me. But I hope he's never doubted that I'm supportive of him as a CEO. And I think that's important. I think it really taught me that CEOs are people too, and they need that help. Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah.
I have a feeling we're going to hear that one
We're
for
gonna
a
hear that.
while.
That's it. That'll be plastered instead of wisdom is only found in truth. Over on that wall, and it'll say,
CEOs are people.
"See, Bassam is human too." That's what it will say.
I love it. Some of your team is writing in as well. Mark Booth is among, and I'm just going to do some name dropping here too.
Yeah.
Scott Harris, Corey Edwards, gentleman that I worked with back at Adobe days. So it's
Great
nice
people.
really great, talented folks. So you do have a really great team. Mark Booth was saying, what's your one piece of advice? I think for both of you, what's the one piece of advice you'd give to employees today who want to excel? Like, I guess it's a big picture message there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things I could speak to there, but I will say this: act senior, right? And when I say act senior, think about it on the emotional scale. Don't contribute to the office gossip and all the things that really just don't matter, all the rumors and things like that. Be seen as someone that's trusted, it's foundational, it's solid. And as you do your role, think of, this is what's being asked of me, but have they thought about this? I've got an idea. I've got a new perspective. I've got a new angle. Hey, I've got an idea. You want to hear it? Leaders really, really do appreciate that. I mean, good leaders appreciate it. I can't speak to every leader. But if one of your engineers came to you and said, Bassam, I've got a great idea, you'd probably jump up and down, because you're probably, I'm just assuming, but I know you pretty well, you've got a lot of great ideas, but you don't have all the ideas. And you're humble enough to say, bring me some additional ideas. And I think that's important for employees to recognize. And I'm going to say this, we've gone through some recent reorgs, and they've been very painful. And the employees never really recognize that Bassam has feelings. Really, as you're making hard decisions, a lot of times we agonize for hours, days, weeks. I mean, I've shed real tears around decisions. It's not easy. What we do is not easy, because we know it's impacting a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, no, it can be really tough when a change like that's made. Okay, I think this one might be a little bit more tongue-in-cheek. Rob Enslow was asking, if you wrote a book, what would it be about? And then, when it would be published, and can we pre-order now?
Oh, Dr. Enslow. My wife's hit me up on this a few times about writing a book. And I've decided that's not a good idea, because English is a second language for me. And,
Are we supposed to laugh at that?
Yeah,
No.
I don't know what my primary language is. All I know is I don't talk too good. And so I don't know if I'm a good writer, but I think actually, Rob, my book would be called Frank's Three Fetishes.
I like that.
Oh, now the
You
room
always
is really
talk about
nervous.
that.
Title's very enticing.
Yeah, the
that's
three
good.
fetishes are cars, watches, and something I can't talk about on video.
Right.
So you know, maybe something tongue in cheek like that. I don't know.
Which has nothing to do with sales or CEOs or any other, we can weave that in.
Listen, I read a lot of sales books and a lot of leadership books, and what I found is that something like 70, maybe 80% of them is recycled material between the writers. It's always blah, 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 ding, you know, they'll have a nugget of real inspiration in there. And that's probably what keeps me from writing a book, because I don't know if I have enough original content, so the reader would be ding, ding, ding with all these great nuggets in it. There's just too much that is so foundational to what we do, and that's why you see it so often. Would you agree with that, Sam?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything else that you
I
have?
think I'm going to keep it about Frank today. Frank, I'm so grateful, not just for your time, but for your authentic friendship. You've been a great human from the day I met you, and I'm so grateful for all of the years of relationship and friendship. Thank you for coming to that.
Same back at you, brother. Thanks.
buddy.
And I'll wrap that up by saying thanks to everyone for coming. This has been a lot of fun for us to do this executive chats idea where we take our chatbot concept, get it? Chats, and talk to people who have really interesting stories and information to share. So thank you for those who were able to join. Thank you, Frank, for joining us. And we look forward to doing some more in the near future.